Well, it's a very warm welcome back, my vintage dirt bike loving YouTubers, and thanks again for rejoining me through our off-road motorcycle journey as we take a look at more of those classic motocross race bikes from back in the day. Now in my next feature clip we're going to look at a German machine that perhaps was not the greatest motorcycle that was ever made, but still worth a look nonetheless. So stay with me for the next few minutes as we check out Kevin Smith's 1983 250 Maico Spider. Now, after the hugely successful 1981 490 Mega 2 that was winning just about everything on the racetrack in that year, Maico 2 years later launched this bike, the 1983 250 Spider, which for our feature clip belongs to Scottish rider Kevin Smith. Now Maico couldn't have introduced this machine at a worse time, as the Maico factory was on the verge of collapse at the time and things were getting very ugly, with family members squabbling and fighting for their share of the Maico empire. Now things certainly didn't look good for the Maico factory, as the whole company was just about to be flushed down the toilet. But in 1983 this was the time that Maico switched from the twin shock configuration on their previously successful race bikes to the relatively modern single rear shock, and this was done to try and stay competitive in the world motocross market. Although with all that was going on in the Maico factory at this time, quality control just went out the window, and these new Maicos suffered from a lot of mechanical issues that Maico tried to fix under warranty claims. Now for 1993 this was still a very nice looking machine, and Kevin's example is a decent original looking bike from that era. But one of the big problems on these bikes were the very nasty Italian made Corte Cosa rear monoshock that had a tendency to just snap through the shaft at the very sniff of a bump or jump. Now of course many riders tried to get these replaced on warranty claims, but it was a lengthy drawn out process, and most riders just opted to fit a better quality Öhlins unit to fix the problem and get their bikes back on the track. And we can see here on Kevin's particular bike he's already upgraded to a very good quality Öhlins replacement shock. And of course the rear shock's remote gas reservoir was housed here in the front of the frame down tube, probably to just help keep the unit cool in the circulating air. But anyhow, the engine was a single cylinder 2-stroke with a 4-speed gearbox and a wet multi-plate clutch. Of course, on this 1983 motor, the troublesome primary chains have now been changed for a gear-driven clutch straight off the crankshaft. Now, the dry weight of the 250 was said to be around 218 pounds, which wasn't too bad for a bike of just a 250 stature. Now, as you would expect, the carburetor intake was angled slightly to the left hand side of the bike to allow room to let the single shock suspension unit to do its work. Now, as I mentioned previously, a single rear monoshock on these new 83 Maicos, although if it was an original Corte Cosa unit you had fitted on your bike back in the day, these were never expected to last very long, and you had to swap them for something with a bit more quality, such as Kevin's top of the range Öhlins unit. Now the front forks on the 83 250 were 42mm, which never had really much scope for adjustments or tuning other than the Schrader valve on the top of the fork leg, where you could add or remove air to stiffen or soften the front end. Of course, if you wanted to go further than that, you could experiment with different fork springs and weights of oil to try and improve the handling. Now a plastic fuel tank again on these 250 Maicos, and just about all bikes in 1983 were now using plastic fuel tanks on motocross machines. Now in the early 1980s, all motocross machines had names for their rear suspension systems to jazz them up a bit and make them sound like the latest technological advances in engineering. Now Suzuki had the full floater, Yamaha had the Monocross, Kawasaki had the Unitrack, and Honda had the Pro Link. So naturally Maico had to come up with something, and so called their system Dual Control. Now to what it actually did, I am not entirely sure, but let's face it, Maico had to call it something, and I suppose Dual Control is better than nothing. But it did its job, and it was functional for 1983. Now, as you would expect from a bike that's now almost 38 years old, Kevin's Maico Spider no longer sports its original expansion chamber from that year, as this has been replaced by a pipe from a Maico only. Now the tailpipe again has also been replaced and upgraded by fitting this very nice alloy unit from PFR. That's Pro Form Racing to you and me. Now once again, these CNC machined alloy ignition covers again are a direct replacement for the original plastic items that came with the bike in 1983, and are very good quality, and I think I'm right in saying that these were supplied by Bill Brown at Worldsport. But nevertheless, despite this 250 Maico's misgivings and some of the bike's problems when they were first launched, once you got everything sorted out, this machine could still be a decent little race bike for your average club rider. Okay, it was never going to even come close to the previous 1981 Mega 2 Maico in terms of its competitiveness, although even before Maico started shipping these bikes to the dealerships, the company was already in dire straits and in one hell of a mess. But anyhow, it's a fair play to Kevin for sticking with his particular 250 Spider, as I know that Kevin's had this bike a few years now, and he has had a few decent results on this bike and a lot of fun while riding it. But as I say, don't get me wrong here, this is still a decent motorcycle with a good little two-stroke motor that was powerful and smooth, although as I mentioned earlier, the quality control just wasn't there, and these bikes took the brunt of all the infighting that was going on in the Maico factory at the time. Okay, we've had a look at the bike and talked a little about the bike's history. Let's just get Kevin to fire the bike up and let's have a listen to what she sounds like. So there you have it, another interesting German classic from 1983. That's Kevin Smith's 250 Maico Spider. Now I know we're all still unable to get out and about on our own classic dirt bikes at this time, so I'll try to continue to post more of these machines to give you something to look at during this lockdown phase. So thanks again for watching, and continue to take care and watch out for others until we all get together again right here on Classic Dirt Bike TV. This video was brought to you in association with WorldSport, the world's #1 supplier for all your off-road and leisure sportswear. Just visit their online website for more information.